and take time to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul, 'cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Hello, and welcome back to the What the Fox podcast with your hosts, Lindsey Fox and Amber Ross. Today, we're going to continue on our topic of change makers and cycle breakers. And we've got a wonderful guest here with us today.
Yes, we do. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Manasi Kakade with us today, and she is a very special guest who is a practical spirituality mentor, and she is the speaker of the Bridgewalker visionaries, and we are going to learn all about what that means. So before we get started, welcome, Manasi. We are so honored to have you here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you, Amber. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. As before we even kind of dive into this conversation, I think it's fair to share the whole way that we kind of connected in the first place. Mm-hmm. And also, so our listeners know, Manasi and I are both Massachusetts gals.
I'm in New Hampshire.
You're
close enough. I'm in New Hampshire, but close enough.
What? For some reason, maybe it's because on the TikTok thing, there was something about Cambridge, Massachusetts.
There was. I was doing a video about what happened when I visited Boston, and that's what we were talking about. Yeah, that's how we connected. Yeah.
Okay, so that was my misunderstanding and assumption, and I shouldn't have done that. So I actually was under the impression you're from not from Massachusetts, but living in Massachusetts. So my apologies.
Yeah. It is the same thing. The culture isn't that different. So.
Oh, you're right about that for sure. So the whole way that I came across Manasi is actually on TikTok. And this is where the beauty of social media is something that we should acknowledge, because frankly, in this podcast, we have kind of dissed social media a lot.
We have. You're right.
It has its moments.
It has its moments. And so I think this is a beautiful moment to shed light on how it can work for the greater good. And so I'm pleased that you're that person that can help emphasize that, because when I found Manasi, this was a viral TikTok that just randomly went viral. It was very off the cuff, and it was because and it was brought to my attention actually through a light worker who said, "Lindsey, I saw this. It spoke to me. It screamed out your name. You have to watch this." And so I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, she is so my people, and I want in on her people. Like, this is just like, I can only imagine how beautiful your community is. So can you tell our community, what is a Bridgewalker?
Absolutely. Let's start there. Bridgewalker is an analytical, critical thinker fascinated by spirituality. Bridgewalkers have a very specific purpose at this time on the earth. If we look into our social systems and structures, and when I say social systems and structures, I'm talking about organizations that are, for example, government, organized religion, healthcare system. And I'm also talking about the social constructs that we as human beings have created for ourselves. For example, racism, sexism, casteism in India, these gender inequality. When we look into these social systems and structures, we realize that they are much farther from the spiritual principles of love and equality for all souls. So there are spiritual people who recognize that these social systems and structures have been developed historically based on control and authority of some people on majority of the people. They do not look at every human being as equal. And that goes against their spiritual principle, their faith, their belief in that love and equality. So what do we do now? It is our time for Bridgewalkers to then look at these social systems and structures and say what is not working. They have the analytical ability to recognize the problems, to recognize the root causes of the symptoms of why something isn't working for some people. And then they have the ability or inspiration and motivation to tap into their spirituality and then say, how can I bring different solutions so that these social systems and structures work for everybody else? For example, if we are talking about love and equality of all souls, then we have to recognize that people who have been historically marginalized, equity is a part of that experience for them. We cannot deny it. We cannot bypass it. We cannot spiritually go away from it. So Bridgewalkers are these people who operate at the intersection of spirituality, systemic change, and practical action, so that the spiritual principles of love and equality for all souls are reflected into their human experience, first through equity for the marginalized, and then in general, rehauling and rebuilding new social systems and structures that look at every human being as equal and deserving of love and abundance. So that's the purpose, collective purpose of Bridgewalkers. And individually, Bridgewalkers will then do that by expressing themselves freely, meaning you have your unique way of being, your dharma. That comes from ancient Indian way of thinking, the culture. Yes. Dharma means your unique way of being. So when you step into your unique way of being, you express that. For Bridgewalkers, that includes their analytical capacity, their way of their ability to question their biases, their prejudices, because everybody's going to have them. And then their however they express that in bringing that on their, if it is through work and career, yes, but if not, in their life, in their community, in their families, how do they do that? Once you step into that unique way of being, your dharma, you become that change agent, the cycle breaker, the change maker that you're born to be. And you contribute to the community what the community needs. That's who a Bridgewalker is. And that's their purpose at this time on the earth.
Girl, whew, you just spoke to the depths of my soul.
So glad to hear it.
Whew, you just spoke to the depths of my soul. Wow, the way your way with words is a beautiful gift. I believe that's one of your many gifts that you've been blessed with in this life.
Thank you.
I believe that's really where you as a change maker, because that is our theme for this whole month, that's where you as a change agent, that your gift with words is astoundingly powerful. It's and I think that's what jumped out at me so much when connecting with you. But to hear you say when you step into your dharma, that is when that sense of agency of change kind of unfolds. That's where the manifestation comes about.
And manifestation for yourself, but also manifestation for the community. Yes. What are we creating together as human beings? And when different people stand in their truth and in their own dharma, by the way, it's not pronounced as dharma, it's dharma. And one of the things that I do as breaking the cycle is to remove the cultural appropriation in the Western world, especially as it is done for the Indian from India, the ancient wisdom from India, because that's what I am familiar with. I grew up with these words, saying these words, speaking these words. And when I came to India, the US, I was like, what are they saying? I don't even understand half the time.
Like, what are y'all talking about?
And they don't even get the concepts. Like, it's very superficial the way it is taught in the Western world. So,
well, it's a way of life so that's just it, right? Is that it's a way of life and a state of being, not for one, but for all in your culture and where you're from.
For all, because India is a very community-oriented culture. It's a community-driven culture. India has picked up wounds from the West that have come now, there are wounds of rugged individualism in there. But when these concepts were created and as they were experienced until recently, like 100 to 200 years ago, these were experienced as a very community-based ideas. So it is very important to stand in your unique expression, but not just for yourself and not just for your own manifestation. It is also so that you can be of service to the community. Whatever your unique truth is, when you stand in it, community benefits from it.
And I love what you said when you were talking about that. I apologize for interrupting, but you said, yes, that could be in a work setting. Yes, that could be in a professional setting, but it seemed that you put even more emphasis on the family portion of that and working inside your own home and inside your own self to be able to benefit the community, not just to benefit your four walls.
Absolutely. And not everybody is going to choose their unique expression as work and career. There are going to be people, but that doesn't mean they don't have a purpose. That doesn't mean they're not living their purpose. It simply means that they have a different outlet for it. So for example, a mother who is on her anti-racism education and she's taking that education, she is going to impart that on her children.
Yes.
And then the child is going to become a citizen who is aware that, let's say it's a white child, that's a white child. By the way, sometimes in English, I use the word it to describe they. I want to make it very clear. I'm not dehumanizing anything. It's just the same word in my language, because that came up on TikTok. Somebody was like, you use the word it. And I said, I instantly corrected it to they. But in my language, they and it has the same word. So I confuse it. But I don't mean to. Right. And I don't mean to dehumanize anything, but I recognize that in English, that is my mistake. But
and that's also not who you are as a person, right? That's a complete antithesis of what you do and who you are. So certainly we all have our own human fallacies that might unfold at times.
Exactly. But for the listeners, because they don't know me, right? Like why should they make assumptions about my goodness either? So, but when a child, he, she, or they, when they grow up, they are going to remember this. My mother used to ask questions about her own privileges. She always was aware, is there a bias that I'm acting from? And imagine what that child would contribute to anti-racism when they grow up, because it is now just the normal part of their upbringing. Yes. So in your parenting, you have the opportunity to express your purpose as a Bridgewalker. In your community, maybe you don't really work, you may not have a child, but you are organizing some community movement about let's go in the park and let's all come together and sit down and chat and have conversations. It could be a simple volunteer project, but you are expressing your purpose as a Bridgewalker of connecting different people. Right? So how your purpose expresses itself doesn't have to be through business, doesn't have to be through work or career. It can be in a variety of different ways. And it usually is in a variety of different ways.
I think that is such an important emphasis for you to emphasize in terms of our identity as a whole and our essence. We are more than what we do. In terms of when I say what we do, I mean, so much is, especially in the US culture, there's such an emphasis on the fact that our identity must align with how we bring in our income. Right. And if you're not bringing in enough income, and if you're not working hard enough, and if your productivity numbers are not just right, or you're not a workhorse, then certainly your value must be very small in the world.
Right. And I have been to my own journey of questioning this wounding, because I kept on thinking that's what it is, that unless I'm earning a certain income, I'm not valuable as a business owner. I'm not providing value to my clients. If I'm not productive, unless I'm busy, I am lazy. Right?
Yes. It's this all or nothing.
All or nothing, this mentality. And there was a time in my life when I graduated with 2 master's degrees in 2007, end of 2007, and 2008, the recession hit. Right. And I had gotten a job that I rejected because I was so confident I will get something else better. And then for 2.5 years, I did not get a job. And then the toll it took on my self-worth, because I was thinking that because I don't have a job, I'm not valuable. Right. So then I started a business, and these self-worth issues are working with themselves. I couldn't raise my prices. I couldn't see the value in the services that I offer. I was underestimating my spirituality, because I was like, well, clearly this is not valuable. I was never appreciated for that. I was usually appreciated for my analytical thinking, the productivity, solutions, creative thinking.
Right. But your engineer mind.
Engineer mind. I'm an engineer. Yes. The mind of an engineer, mind of a business person, not necessarily my spirituality. So all of these, they take a toll on you. So then I come into business world, and the messages I hear is, in your first year, you have to earn 6 figures, and then 7 figures in the second year, and then multi-million. And then recently I heard the message of 9 figures. Wow. Like, who is this coach or healer who is getting into the business thinking, I want to make 9 figures? Just to give the context, 9 figures is 1,000 million. Right? Like 1 billion.
Our minds can't even wrap around that.
Why would I even care about that as a coach and a healer, this is not to say you shouldn't make it or you cannot make it. You probably can. But the way to get there is by strengthening your self-worth, that when I don't have it, I am still worthy. I am still valuable. And then you can earn whatever, how much ever you want, because then money becomes a tool for change. Money becomes a tool for impact, not necessarily your value.
Money is not the destination.
Money is not the destination, and money is not where your value is. So when you let go of that attachment, that's when you recognize, oh, okay, there may be parts of my life when I'm just going to have to work to make money, and that's okay. There are going to be parts of my life when I'm building a business on the side and I'm still having a job. That doesn't make me any less of a business person.
Well, let's talk about that, right? That you're leading into an amazing segue. So let's talk about that, because, you know, you're absolutely spot on in terms of, at least Western world, we say our productivity equates to our self-worth, without a doubt. And so undoubtedly, in every facet of your life, as a parent, as a volunteer, as a business owner, as whatever you are in the world and whatever things that you do, it does take a toll. And those negative thought patterns bleed in to absolutely everything. And as I hear you talk as a business owner and saying like, wow, as I started this process, because there's like, this is multifaceted in terms of where I see my brain going in this conversation. But I'm thinking, yes, if you haven't worked through those kinks in terms of your negative thought patterns, those cognitive distortions, we call them, if you haven't worked through them, you're not going to have a really easy time building up a business that equates to your real sense of worth, because you're going to be operating under this notion that I can't charge my clients that price because, oh my goodness, what if I lose the client? What if it's not good enough? And it's just, if you keep doing that, you're just reinforcing those negative belief patterns. Frankly, that's kind of how I look at it.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly it. And not only that, so let's say let's take into account pricing, right? You're thinking, I want to charge higher, but just not finding the courage to do it.
Right.
There's another side of it, which I faced, was also when you want to charge lower and you were saying that I won't be successful by charging lower. Right. And business strategy wise, my MBA was telling me that it's just a matter of pricing. It's you charge lower, you are going to have higher volume in order to make the same amount of profit. You charge higher, you are going to have lower volume in order to make the same amount of profit. So business wise, I understood, but because I was seeing my value in how much I charge, I could not charge higher and I could not even charge lower.
So you're just stall out.
Right. So I'm stuck in this middle where my business strategy is not aligned with me. I want to create products that will reach tons of people at a lower price. And I want to create products that will find the depth of transformation at a higher price. And I wasn't doing either of them because I didn't have the courage on one side and I was seeing my value on the other side.
Right.
So in both cases, I'm seeing my value in that money, in that price tag. And the moment I realized what is going on, that I'm acting from my wounding, it obviously took some time to heal it, to start seeing my value in who I am, not in what I do or how much I do and how much money I bring in. That's when it actually changed, because then I created lower ticket prices where I could teach for free if I wanted to, and that would get me money.
Right.
Eventually, meaning I wouldn't charge everybody, but I would give so freely that people automatically wanted to say, support me on Patreon or something. And then other side of it, where there is very intense, in-depth transformation that cost more to work with me. But because that transformation is so deep, only people who are willing to go through that depth of wounding, questioning their wounding and healing, will sign up for it. And they value it actually at more than what I charge.
Oh, absolutely. The return on investment is just, it's priceless.
Right. But I wasn't even creating those products because I was stuck in this wounded idea of where my value is. Right. And this is just one aspect of it. That pricing is one aspect of it.
But that's why I was my brain wants to go in so many different directions.
Right. Another example is I had a huge fear of being seen. So I wasn't doing videos. I wasn't teaching. I wasn't writing what I wanted to write. I was not, I hated taking photos. I was just
Which
like,
is
I'm not
astonishing,
photogenic.
by the way. This is astonishing. Like to
Isn't
see
it?
you who you are today is just like
Yes.
baffling. Like what?
Right. But because and the wounding came from a very small incident. In my childhood, I must be, I don't know, I forget this age every time, but I was definitely less than 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents had taken me to take a photograph. And I went there and I was all happy. I'm this dressed up and all excited. And I'm just my now how I am, unwounded self, like very happy, bursting with cheer. And I sat in front of that chair wherever the photographer wanted me to be. And he said, smile. So I smiled. I basically was like showing all my teeth in here. And I was smiling. And he's like, don't show your teeth, just smile. Like, don't laugh, just smile. So I was like, okay. So then I smiled the only other way I knew, which was closing your lips, just moving it across. And then he's like, you know what? Just don't smile. And that I picked up a wound in this moment from a random stranger and their idea of what a smile should be. But my wound was that my smile isn't worth being photographed.
It's not worth being
seen. And then slowly, when you pick up one wound, it starts unraveling and you pick up more and more wounds because you keep telling yourself stories. Yes. So that story then became, I am not worth being photographed. Then that story became, I am not beautiful. Yes. And then that story became, I should not be seen. I'm not worthy of being seen. And then 20, 30 years later, I'm creating this business and everybody's telling me you should be on Instagram. You should be writing blog posts freely. You should be teaching on videos.
Because it's very clear. It's your life's purpose. That's your path. That's what you're destined to do.
Right.
Everyone else saw it.
Everybody else saw it. I couldn't. And even when, and there is part of that programming was coming from wounded business ideas. Solopreneurship industry has very wounded ideas about how we should be doing. So telling me that I should be on Instagram when you aren't even questioning, do I like taking photos? Is that the right strategy for me?
No.
Problematic. Right. Yeah. So I teach my clients now when they work with me that the right strategy for you that will actually bring success is what you can work with in that moment. So if it is not Instagram, it has taken me like 2 years to get on TikTok precisely because I just was like, I may not be able to say what I want to say in 3 minutes, just not possible. Right. So I had to then get that expertise to understand my material so deeply that now I can say it in a minute. I can say it in 30 seconds whenever I want. But that's why TikTok wasn't the right strategy for me. But fortunately, at that time, I had come to a point where I did not have fear of being seen. I just knew this is not the right thing for me. And I made that decision. But so in the business world too, when people tell you this is the right strategy for you, ask, is this really? Like, where is my wounding coming from? And then heal that wounding so that you can take advantage of different options that are available to you.
Yes, so you can reframe those stories, right? So you can go from shifting those old stories and say that, I'm really sorry, this is your old story, but now with this transformation, we're going to work on what is your new story and how can we keep repeating that new story to ourselves so that we can manifest what we want.
Right. And sometimes changing the story doesn't really happen in that mental plane, meaning I wasn't in a position to tell myself, you are not worthy of being seen. This is what I have thought for decades. And now and this was subconscious, by the way, none of this was conscious. Once I understood certain concepts, I can now phrase it in that way. So, but what I was questioning is, why can't I take photos? Why do I feel uncomfortable doing it? Yeah. So you are feeling uncomfortable taking the photos to go from that. And no, I'm just now perfectly beautiful, perfectly being seen and okay with that and worthy of being seen. That transition doesn't happen in thoughts.
Girl, wait, you mean we can't just therapy? That's like Instagram therapy.
Like, you mean I can't just like snap my fingers and make the negative self-talk go away?
Right? But yeah, so it has to take practical healing actions. And for me, my action started simply by saying, okay, let's take a selfie. I took a selfie, did not even feel comfortable. I took my first selfie in 2018.
Wow.
Because until then, I just
Wow.
wasn't even feeling comfortable. So then I took, no, 2018. I had taken a couple of selfies before that, but 2 selfies. But regularly, I started taking selfies in 2018. But first time I took the selfie, first time, maybe like 2-3 times I've taken before, but first time in 2018 when I took a selfie, did not feel comfortable. So I asked myself, okay, let's reduce that action even lower. What I did feel comfortable is in talking. So I said, let's just start doing videos. Okay, well, doing videos outside did not feel comfortable. So I started doing videos for my clients who have paid to hear from me. I started doing videos there where there was a safe space. And even then I had my doubts. I asked my clients, do you like this? Do you not like this? And they were all like jumping on it because they were happy I'm finally coming on the show.
Yes.
But that felt comfortable and slightly comfortable, like just enough out of my comfort zone where I can stretch myself, but also get the healing and new evidence that it's okay for me to do videos. Then I started doing videos in my Facebook group because that felt comfortable, not yet on my page, not where it's publicly available, just in my Facebook group.
Your people,
my people who have signed up to listen from me. No matter how small that population was at that time, right? So I came up there and then slowly, I think, what was it? 2020 January, I finally did my first branded photo shoot for my business.
Amazing.
So it has taken me 2015 when I first understood I'm not able to take photographs and there is some like block there to the 2020 to get my first photo shoot done when people were telling me like you should do this in 2015 as a strategy. It wasn't going to work then and it wouldn't have.
It's not a good strategy for you if it doesn't fit in the voice that you're speaking to yourself. That's not going to attract the right people. It's not going to create the right space, because I'm a firm believer, and it's something that I'm digging into in my own kind of healing journey, that the thoughts you believe about yourself subconsciously, consciously, all of it projects to the people around you and also attracts that similar type of person into your space. So then you're getting that like affirmation in hearing the way others talk about themselves and saying, oh yeah, I say those things too. That must mean this is true. So you have to truly change all of those things in order to heal those wounds and to be able to move past it and to get to that branded shoot. And I'm like, incredible that you did that for yourself and for the community around you to be able to see you don't have to carry this hurt forever. You can do the work, you can release it, and you can progress beyond.
Absolutely. And in fact, when we heal our wounds, that's when we actually step into our dharma. Because the other side of that dharma is called adharma, meaning something that is not aligned with you, but you're carrying it and you're expressing it. So what is not aligned with us is, if I absolutely love giving speeches, right? That's my jam. Like I come alive when I am with a live audience.
Isn't
and live
something?
Nowadays, right. So giving like speeches, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like my mother could tell. She's like, there is something else about you when you do that, and then everything else. So being a speaker wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't even thinking that.
Of course
my
you
mentor
weren't.
asked me in like 2008 that why have you considered speaking professionally? And I was like, what? No. That's not
absolutely
for me.
not.
That's lots of cameras.
Right? So when I heal these fears and I understand, I was like, I'm having fun giving speeches. I am supposed to be seen. It just didn't feel comfortable because of the wounding. But that doesn't mean that option isn't for me. In fact, that's the only option at this point for me.
Right.
And like,
I'm so sorry.
I was going to say, and now I enjoy it. Now it's like, it gives me the type of fulfillment that I cannot possibly get anywhere else. And it's not in like that being, right. And it's not in that being seen like, oh, see me and ego, right? It's not that. It's just that there are some people who would have that as part of their expression. And I do have that. Right. So not doing it felt very limiting to me. It felt like I'm hiding.
Because there was a part, and this is where I keep kind of going back, is that your life purpose, this is a part of, I feel like it's, well, we'll get to this piece too, but a big part of your business model are the 7 chakras. And so I like your throat chakra is a big part of manifesting and practicing what you preach, so to speak. And what I think is so beautiful about your story as you're sharing it with us today is the fact that you essentially completed, at least in my world, what we call exposure therapy. You essentially assumed the role of doing exposure therapy with yourself, which is an evidence-based practice, mind you. There's lots of research to support that the efficacy, effectiveness is right on point. And you're a perfect example of this. Is like the more that you expose yourself to the feared stimuli or stimulus in a gradual manner that is not entirely egregiously uncomfortable, but just enough. Just enough to push yourself a little bit. The more that you do that and kind of go through that hierarchy of fears, the more comfortable you get. And then in your case, which we do see with phobias and all kinds of things, it then turned into a life purpose of, I am destined to speak in front of the masses and to be heard and seen because my voice is worthy.
Right. Right.
Beautiful.
I'm so glad you drew that connection with psychology in there and the counseling and therapy with that exposure therapy, because the key point there is that gradual and just enough, because the other side of the wounding is all the bro marketing, which is just do it. Yes, and then you're like, how do I jump from here to here?
I love that you just called it bro marketing.
Then that's the wounded patriarchy, white supremacy, all coming in together, thinking there is no such thing as, if I have not recognizing my privileges, not recognizing that somebody else can pick up the wounds. That's a woman is picking up the wounds. Somebody who has non-binary gender identity are picking up the wounds around expression. Somebody who is a person of color is wondering they're going to be even alive if they're being seen. And all these are generational, ancestral trauma. And you're telling us to go from here to just do it. And if we just don't do it, there is something wrong with us. Because that's the other message you hear, right?
You're right.
Just do it. There's something wrong with you if you cannot do it. And without understanding that you can do it, because if you just do it, the privileges are going to get you to the point of success.
And you know, there's a name for this too, what you're talking about. There's a name for what you're talking about. So
what is the name?
That's why I'm like, wait, in the spirit of labeling things, I have to label this right now, is that it is called flooding. So when you are flooding yourself and you're not doing the gradual exposure and you are flooding yourself with the just do it, let me just dive into the deep end and I'll figure it out. That is flooding. And it is so it is so traumatizing. It can throw you back 1,000 steps where all of a sudden all the progress that you've made, you're all of a sudden saying like, wait, now I can't do anything. It actually makes those self-limiting beliefs 1,000 times worse.
Exactly. And it takes a toll on your self-worth, because we aren't even trained as a people who have faced marginalization. I am a woman. I identify, I am a person of color. I am an immigrant. So I wasn't ever trained until I started my own anti-racism education to recognize my own biases, because I am brown, lighter skinned than Black people. Right. So I started recognizing, questioning my own privileges, my own blind spots, my own prejudices, biases. Until that time, I had not even questioned my internalized marginalization. So when you are experiencing a marginalized identity, it is internalized that already you are less than somebody. That's Part of me that I did not feel worth of being seen is because I'm not light-skinned and I don't look like a thin, white, young woman. So that's the standard of beauty in our traditional world right now, which we are questioning every day. But in my mind, subconsciously, I had associated that with beauty, and how I look is not beautiful enough. So then that is already internalized marginalization. You are subconsciously and consciously, in some cases, looking down on yourself already because you're experiencing marginalization. And then add flooding to it. I mean, the self-worth takes a toll. that it takes decades at times to pick it up, which is why I tell my clients that you just have to be gentle with yourself, because my clients usually have some form of marginalization and some form of privilege. Usually they recognize that they have both. And then they're questioning their privileges and they're healing their marginalization, right? Yeah. So when they come to me, this is what it is. They just have to learn to be gentle with yourself. But being gentle with yourself is again looked down upon, that you're not strong enough, you're not resilient enough. So it's like it's like a whole spiral that takes the toll ultimately on your self-worth.
We just had an episode about that.
Yeah. What?
I said we just had an episode about kind of the dark side of resiliency and why it's not always a good thing.
Right. And then on the other side of the messaging, it's like there is so many conflicting messages. We really have to understand where we stand with this. The other side is no, be vulnerable, be authentic. But some people are just like,
right. Don't be too authentic.
I said, but not too authentic.
Not too authentic, right? Like be vulnerable, be authentic. But don't be vulnerable, because people then see being actual true resiliency is feeling comfortable in being vulnerable when you are vulnerable, and feeling comfortable being strong. Like I don't give a damn about this when you are feeling that way. That both are authentic.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think of it like Pema Chodron. When Pema Chodron, an American Buddhist, talks about the middle way, which is very much about sitting in this space of discomfort and finding comfort in the discomfort. I really do believe, if I think about an aspect of resiliency per se, I would say it would be finding that sense of comfort in the discomfort and allowing yourself to just be present where you are and sitting there.
Right. That's a beautiful way of putting it. The ancient Indian wisdom of chakra, by the way, it's pronounced as chakra, not chakra, not chakra.
Like I'm going to keep messing it up today. You gotta have to keep correcting me, because now it's so ingrained at this point.
It's so ingrained, right? Because another aspect of it is, like, if you hear a French word, people are like, oh, how do I say this? Right? That comes from that privilege of like, oh, French is something special. But India, well, who cares about those people? Right? So the pronunciation has never been asked because of the colonization. Like we can call it whatever the heck we want. We don't need to say it your way in order to use your concepts and superficially, not even to the depth. But to super. So it's the colonization, which is why I keep changing it.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you so much for bringing awareness to that. I actually think that what you just brought up is such a valuable lesson for all of us, because it is so true in terms of, which is interesting, because our follow-up guest speaker this month, the topic is actually on bilingualism. And we actually do talk a bit about some of this. So it is, I love that you just emphasize that, because you're right. It is a piece of the colonization of how we've decided in this country or in the Western world, we take what we want and
what is convenient.
Leave the rest.
Yeah, not even what you really need, but what is convenient.
What feels good.
What feels good, what feels convenient, and leave the depth of it behind. Call it whatever you want it. Like yoga is not pronounced as yoga, it's yog.
Yog.
Really?
Right. So in India, we say when yog became yoga, it became famous. Right. Because
right, of course, because then it was the white people thing.
And it was commercialized. So now you're going to gym to do something special, whereas yoga was just simply a practice, a spiritual practice you do to bring body, mind, and spirit in unison. That's what yoga means. Yoga means joining, but it's called yoga. It's not yoga. So you're not going to a yoga class. And probably you are, just because you're going to the gym and there is no aspect of spirit or body, mind in there, just the body. That is the superficial part of it.
Right.
But the yoga is actually that spiritual practice altogether. But anyway, so what I was saying is that wisdom of 7 chakra, the chakra that tells us what is actually worth expressing is Vishuddha chakra. Vishuddha means especially pure. And that's what you have heard as throat. Vishuddha.
Okay.
Vishuddha. Because again, these names, the original Sanskrit names, has such depth of meaning to it than just throat. It's not some point on your body. It's an archetypal energy. So archetypal energy is vishuddha, meaning especially pure. So if anger feels especially pure to you in the moment, you have to express it. If vulnerability feels especially pure, you have to express it. If peace and calm and quiet feels especially pure, you have to express it. And expression isn't just in the words, expression also happens in our decisions, in our actions. The wisdom tells us that when you choose something that is especially pure to you in the moment, number one, you will understand where the wounding is. So if anger is coming out, rather than suppressing it, if you experience it, if you express it, you will recognize there is anger hiding in me and I need to address it.
And then the other side, that's the other
and
piece,
label
is being
it.
able to label that. We call that affect identification.
Right.
So many people don't know how to label those emotions. They just feel something's off.
Right. And then second part it tells you is you don't have to be perfect to express yourself. Right? Express whatever we feels pure in the moment. Some parts of it are going to be unwounded. Some parts of it will be wounded. So continue your healing around the wound so that you increase the parts that you're expressing out of healing, out of the healed self, which is your original self. We pick up wounds. We don't get healing. Like healing isn't something that we need to get. We need to unlearn the wounding. That is healing. And that's who we really are. So some parts of you,
the wounding, that is a beautiful way of articulating that.
Right. And then once you understand, then let's say in business, once you start expressing whatever that healed self is, and those parts start increasing, that's when you attract the soulmate clients. That's when you start making money. That's when you start creating joy and ease for yourself. It comes from the healing the wounds and then expressing whatever feel pure in the moment, but increasing the parts that are actually healed. When you express more and more of that, that's going to feel liberating. And that's what this wisdom of chakra tells us about this, the discomfort, the sitting with the comfort, that middle way, that sitting in the comfort of discomfort, because there's always going to be both these with you. You just express what is pure to you in the moment. So don't feel compelled to get on the videos if you don't need to. Which I'm telling this to myself now because I haven't done like TikTok videos in 7. And some people are like, are you okay? Like, where are you?
It's also that idea that it's not all or nothing. It's not one extreme or the other. I haven't done as much research into this as what either of you have, but for me, when you say middle way and what y'all are explaining, it is that comfort in moderation, that it is that, like, you're never going to feel 100% one way. There's always going to be aspects of different emotions in each moment, and you have to be able to label them to understand what's going on. But sometimes you also just have to sit. And I think that, like, we don't do that. I don't do that nearly enough. And Lindsey knows this is something that I'm actively working on, because for me, being quiet and being still and sitting and doing nothing is incredibly uncomfortable for a variety of reasons.
Right. It goes against the grain of what we've been socialized to believe and live as.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And that brings me to like the another chakra, which is Manipur chakra. Manipur, you have heard of that as solar plexus.
Okay. Yeah.
Mani means a jewel or gem, and Pur means a city. So Manipur means city of jewels, city of gems. What are these gems? These are our emotions. So this chakra tells us that when you sit with your emotions, you recognize alignment and you recognize a misalignment. When you are experiencing something that feels undesirable, you need to understand it's coming because you're experiencing something that is out of alignment. So Manipur chakra tells us what is aligned, what isn't aligned. So sitting with our emotions is a crucial tool to recognize which path I'm moving in. What decisions should I be making? What should I be choosing? We have been so trained to think that we make decisions and take actions based on just logic that we forget. I'm reading this book, Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. Wonderful
yes, so
book.
am I.
Highly recommend it to your audience and to my audience, whoever is listening this. I was also watching her HBO Max original where she teaches the Atlas of the Heart concepts. And she was saying in that video, she was saying that we think human beings are thinkers who feel emotions once in a while. That's how we have taught ourselves to think about it.
So true.
He said data suggests opposite. Data suggests that we are emotional being who think once in a while.
That's right.
So if we are that emotional, and now the data is proving it, by the way, Brené Brown is a Bridgewalker. She's building the bridge between heart and the head.
Yes. She does amazing work too.
Exactly. So now the data is suggesting actually we need to pay attention to emotions. So we are now in our modern ways of data collection, we are understanding what these ancient mystics were telling us, that you cannot bypass your emotions. You have to pay attention to them.
That's right. That's right. You have to be present with them. And something I love about your philosophy, which is on your website, by the way, is how you said, my philosophy is best captured in this quote by Unlabel Me, which is to label me to see me, but unlabel me to know me.
Right.
And so it is so much of that unlearning process that essentially you're teaching. You are teaching people how to unlearn the thing. And, you know, when you think about the irony of that, it's just teaching people to be present with the here and now.
Yes.
Yeah. It's those simple sounding spiritual principles are really the key, but they are so hard to implement.
Yes.
Because in order to understand even what that means, we really have to dig deep. And then to embody those principles, that's like a whole other game.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
Like, yes, I didn't even understand at first, what does it even mean to be in the now? Of course, I'm in the now. I'm doing
I'm right here. I'm right here.
I'm right here. Like, what do you mean? Then, okay. I guess if they're talking about not doing and being, and then being present, like being aware, being mindful, then I learned it my way, and then embodying it, I'm just like, dang, that's a whole other game right there.
This is something entirely different. It's like a wringing out of a sponge, right? So I see people as sponges, and we soak up information, we soak up opinions, we soak up, whatever the world is giving us. And we do not spend enough time wringing that out and taking the pieces of information to understand, okay, which one of these items are right for me to keep, which ones need to be discarded, and which ones do I need to dig further into to understand more and take that next step. I mean, I don't want to classify it as lazy as not doing that, but it's not ingrained in us to take that second step. It's, I have lots of information, I'm going to set it here on a shelf, and one day I'll know what to do with that. And that's just not the case.
No. In fact, a lot of the work of Bridgewalkers is to not stop at enlightenment, but move into embodiment, because that's the practical spirituality. Understanding the principles. We have been doing it once in a while. Some mystics, thinkers, open-minded religious leaders like Dalai Lama have been demonstrating that enlightenment is one thing.
Yes.
But embodiment is the next step. And we have been understanding enlightenment. Right.
It's practicing what you preach. Yeah.
Exactly. And so if we are understanding a concept, how do I make it practical in my life? And I know a lot of Bridgewalkers, their purpose is exactly that, making spirituality practical, understanding a principle, and then recognize, how do I bring that on earth in my practical life, in somebody else's practical life? How do I do that? And then ultimately, that's how social systems and structures change, because social systems are nothing but made out of people, their beliefs, their biases, their prejudices. So as we heal ourselves, as we question ourselves, as we educate ourselves and challenge our own biases, we are going to understand, okay, I guess when I say love and I keep spiritually bypassing something, that's not really right. That's not love, right? So, and that's one example. The other example could be like, if I really want to manifest something, so if I want to get into higher vibration, I cannot stop my anger. I need to heal my anger.
Yes.
I cannot just be like, feel happy thoughts now so that you are in the vortex. That's not going to happen. That's not what being in the vortex means.
I am all about this. I mean, this is like the essence of what I have been working on. And I know that you and I have not had a conversation about this, but I do have a coaching business, but something I've been working on the side in terms of my own realm of being a Bridgewalker is really bringing trauma-informed practices to the world of law.
World of law, you said?
Law, legal practices.
Wow, so needed.
It's so needed, and
So
it's
needed.
never talked about. And so what I have been finding is that, at least in the world, the sphere of influence that we call lawyers, number one, they've never learned about trauma-informed care in law school. And number two, more often than not, they've never done their own heart work.
Oh,
true.
yes.
And so
Yes.
I am very focused to the point where I'm like laser focused on this mission. And it's because I believe that the systemic change and what it can bring to the forefront could be life-changing for so many people on so many different levels. And I think that's where that practice what you preach piece is so important, is that when you know better, you must do better.
Right.
You have to go beyond that step of enlightenment. You have to put it out in the world and invite others to kind of be a part of this.
Right. And you have to constantly question, do I know better?
Of course.
Because that's where that issue of blind spots comes in. Because sometimes you just don't know that you are not knowing in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there is a better option available. You just don't know it because you haven't explored it. And right now we have no excuse. There is Google. Right. Everything is available. So constantly educating ourselves, constantly questioning, do I have a blind spot here? Do I have a privilege? It's very important part of healing our own wounds. And we are not doing this for somebody else. Like if somebody is thinking like, oh, I'm questioning my privileges so that on that spectrum, somebody who is marginalized, I'm creating better system for them. That's saviorism right there.
Yes.
You are not doing it for somebody else. You are doing it so that you recognize your own wounding, because when there are blind spots, it doesn't just hurt marginalized people, it hurts the people who are privileged in that system. For example, on one of my TikTok videos, I gave example of gender identity, right? There is gender marginalization. So binary identity is perceived to be better or normal than non-binary gender identity, which is obviously not the case. Everything
our world hasn't caught up with that.
Hasn't caught up with it, or our world has kind of gone backwards in that case. Because ancient cultures understood it. It's a mixture of different energies, and however you express it, you express it. By the way, if your audience, if they want to do the research on how gender identity even started out of white supremacy, it's really interesting. That started in the United States around, I think, in the 60s and 70s, when a lot of immigrants were coming up, and immigrants usually have the same clothing between men and women.
Right.
So they will wear, like Indian men, if you see tunics, men wear that, women wear that. So there wasn't much differentiation between men and women. And they wanted to say, like, this idea came in where people were like, okay, so how do we separate white people from others? We start saying that better way is because, like, we are a better race because our genders are like clear denomination between genders. You wear dresses, we wear pants. But look at these people, they aren't even evolved enough to create that differentiation. So at the same time, they institutionalize sexism, racism, and xenophobia. It's like win-win for
that's a profound
white
way
men
of articulating that as well.
Right. So anyway, there could be research that could be done in it. Very interesting how that came in.
Wow.
But the point I was making is in the gender roles of how we see the roles and how we see that expression. Just look at the expression through clothing, for example. The non-binary gender identity, there could be a person who is wearing, say, a dress, they have short hair, they have beard, right? That is because it is atypical, it's perceived as abnormal. Not everything, atypical doesn't mean abnormal. Those are two different things. That is normal to their way of being, and that should be accepted for them and for us. But because we have these ideas, I myself, in Indian clothing, I wanted to wear some clothes that would be perceived as a man's clothing. And I used to wear it. And there was a part of me that wanted to wear it just because I wanted to. I looked good in it. But there's a part of me that perceived myself as a less beautiful and less woman because I was wearing that. So even though I have a privileged identity as a binary gender identity,
right,
I was picking up the wounds that the system was giving on me. Instead of saying like, I love wearing this, I'm just going to do it. I am picking up wounds in the process that's saying, if I wear this, I'm not beautiful enough. So I should not wear this. So I used to wear those clothes just at home.
wow,
Right. So that's how system of marginalization impacts everybody. It puts wounds on everybody. So if you are questioning the system and if you are questioning your biases and your prejudices, you do it for yourself.
Yes.
Not for somebody
Absolutely.
else, not because you're going to do this, make a system better for somebody else who is marginalized. That's not you.
Right.
No, that's saviorism. Don't do it. Do it for yourself.
Yes.
The same way, once we start questioning wounded patriarchy, we recognize I have picked up wounds because I am not staying busy all the time. Is being busy good for really anybody?
No.
Nobody.
No,
Nobody.
it's not.
Right? It's not. So it's affecting everybody, not just the women in the society, not just the non-binary gender identities, not just the trans people, right? It's affecting everybody, not just the system that is put by white supremacists, wounded men's thinking is affecting everybody, including
their
the
insecurities are affecting the whole world.
The whole world, but including themselves. That's the point I want to make, including themselves, because then they are like, oh, I'm not spending time with my children. And then children are picking up the wounds, like my dad never hugs me. Right.
The cycles are endless. The cycles are endless. And I kind of love this expression, no mud, no lotus.
No mud, no lotus.
No mud, no lotus.
That's good.
That's what my coaching logo is actually a lotus, but that's what I think is like, you have to do the work. You have to do the work. You cannot become a lotus without dabbling in the mud. You can't, you just can't do it. No. And likewise, I think that's where it's so important for your Bridgewalkers to continue spreading the message and implementing, what they've learned from you and the knowledge that they have already, because clearly you're attracting, when you say Bridgewalkers and analytical thinker, these are really brilliant people. You're letting your audience know we want people who have the wherewithal and ability to go out there and impact the world. Right.
Yeah, they show their intelligence in that way. I mean, the gender people, there's different type of intelligence. There could be like movement intelligence,
of course,
right? A different type of, so their brilliance comes out in these thoughts like, oh, what are the problems in the system? What is the solution I can create? And here's the best part. You don't have to do it alone. Like we are not going to change the whole world alone.
No,
we are in this.
So that would be a very American way to look at it, because we're such an individualist society. But for a collectivism view, yes,
we are
it's
doing
a village.
This. It is a village. We are all doing this together. There are Bridgewalkers, which is why a big part of my purpose is to build communities of Bridgewalkers where they are coming together. They're questioning ideas. They're building off of each other's inspiration and ideas. I have groups like that for businesses. I'm creating a group now based on like what TikTok people want, right? Just idea generation.
Right. Sure.
So all of this is like building that community. We are coming together and we are healing ourselves together and generating ideas on how we can change the systems together.
I love that. And I feel like so much of your story is based on doing that heart work, doing that self-work, showing others how to do that, and then bringing all of those people together who have done the healing work, who've walked their path, and be able to normalize that and show that as something that's possible, so that the masses start to say, hey, wait a minute, that looks a lot better than what I'm doing. Like that looks like it's working a lot better than my systems and my processes. And I know we've spent almost an hour now talking about parts of your story, and there's so much more left to share. Like I'm going to ask the question. I would love for you to join us again for another episode, because I feel like there's so much deeper that we could go here.
Right.
You are just a truly incredible human and spirit and person, and just like getting to hear from you and see you light up and see your passions shared. I have absolutely no doubt that you'll continue to do big things and be a change maker.
Thank you. Thank you. It would be a pleasure to come back again, because we have had fun.
I know, this has been a blast.
It really has. Yes.
We are so grateful for your time and for making this happen too. I mean, I truly feel like there are so many, because really a big topic, which I'd love to have you come back on to discuss, which is another big piece of this, is the difference between equity and equality. And so,
so let's start here. I'm going to give people resources on where to go to find out more information so they can continue their learning, right?
Sure, we can add that to the show notes.
Right. And one of the resources is where I did the video on equality versus equity. It's on TikTok.
Wonderful. We can put that in the show notes for sure, just to kind of start the process of saying,
we can start the process. Right. Because that's a big deal. When I was doing that viral video on TikTok, of course, I didn't know it was going viral, but I mentioned that spiritual principles of love, equality of all souls, and equity for the marginalized. And I saw people are like, love, woo, 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 equality, fantastic, equity. Why?
It's like, wait, what about equity?
Suddenly people are like going in their shell as they were responding to the videos. They were doing stitches and whatever else, whatever other thing. Do it. And I was like, why is this happening? And that's when it clicked me. People don't understand the difference. They understand equality is great. But who wants to do the equity? Because that needs work.
Because that
is the practical part.
Honestly, that's hard. That's where you need Bridgewalkers. Yes, right. That's hard.
That's where like equality is the lotus. You need the mud for that lotus to come up. And that mud is the equity. Like, what are we doing right now to improve the experience until we get to the perfection of actually achieving the equality? Because if we already had equality, we would not need equity.
Right.
Then we wouldn't need it, which is excellent. Then go. That's the future we are building. Of course, we don't want equity either. Like, not that we don't want it right now. We want to get to a point where
I'm laughing because I know this is like such a passionate topic. Like, we could go on and on and on about it, but it's fabulous.
Right. So let's include that video. And then I have other resources for Bridgewalkers. Go to my website, manasikakade.com, and we will include the link as well. But if you go on my website, on the right-hand top corner, it says Bridgewalkers Start Here. Click on that, and you are going to get a beginner's guide for Bridgewalkers. There is an option to download that. If you are a solopreneur, meaning coach, healer, artist, author, then there is a 7 chakra and business mini course in there, how your 7 chakra energies relate to business functions and processes. Take that course up there. It's a wonderful introduction to.
And it's a complimentary download, if I'm not
mistaken. It's a complimentary download. It's free. I want as many people to get that basic knowledge as much as possible, because what is taught outside as chakra is really like this color and this image and this sound. And that's not even like, chakra is an archetypal energy. It's energy first. And then some people, let's say somebody who is a clairvoyant is going to see it as a color. Somebody who is a clairaudient is going to hear it as a sound. So all of those are like external ways of expressing it. It's basically the energy. So once you understand which energies you are playing with, you understand where your issues are in business. So it's much easier to actually create business success through energetic healing. And then I have a podcast, which is Bridgewalkers Tea. You can find it on any major platform, but you also have the link there on that page to do that.
Yes.
And then if anybody wants to go deeper with me, there is a private one-on-one mentorship that I offer. It's called Bridgewalker Visionaries Incubator. It's literally, you know you're a visionary. How are you becoming one? It's for that. So if you're interested in that, we will include that link also in the show notes.
So we will include all the things in the show notes. And we appreciate your time and energy so much for today. And we will certainly be in touch. And honestly, we hope to hear from our listeners today to share with us, what did you learn from today's episode?
Yes.
What was most surprising, or what was your aha moment with today's episode? We want to hear from you. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and don't forget, we also exist on TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram. So thank you, everyone. And Manasi, truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on What the Fox. Until next time, guys, we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye, y'all.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.